What is up, Earth's mightiest subscribers? It's Blerd without fear. Welcome back to the channel. All right, today's video, we're going to be talking about X-Men number 9 by Gerry Duggan and CF Villa. And in this video, we are going to be talking about why the mutants of Arakko are preparing to leave planet Arakko and return to Otherworld, what characters are revealed to have been secretly working with Orchis or are about to work with Orchis, and why Krakoa is scared to go to war with Orchis. We're going to talk about all this and more right now, but first, if you want to see more awesome videos like this one, hit that subscribe button. I post multiple videos throughout the week, plus live stream the Blerd Cave every Saturday at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific. So hit that bell button, that way you don't miss anything. With that out of the way, let's talk about X-Men number 9.
You can't see me, you Stevie, wondering how I reach more evolutions than Evie and make it look easy.
So to talk about why Krakoa is scared to go to war with Orchis, for one, it would be a stark contrast to the kill no man law, because war usually implies at least someone is going to die. The other reason is that the war that they are voting on is not an open war. It would be a secret war, requiring cloak and dagger tactics and above all else, lies. Lies that could put them at odds with not just Earth's mightiest heroes, but even their own mutant brethren. This could easily end up making some other mutants think that Krakoa is betraying everything that it stands for, trading in the peace and prosperity and freedom of mutants everywhere and turning it into a warlike nation, which is kind of the path that Krakoa has been secretly and slowly leading towards. The other problem is that not everyone has their heart in it. While it's unsurprising that mutants like Nightcrawler or even Charles Xavier would be hesitant to enact open war against humans, it is profoundly puzzling that they're reluctant to engage with a group of hate-mongering humans who want nothing more than their eradication. Now, this isn't, anything new to the X-Men, but Orchis poses a threat that is unlike any threat the X-Men have faced before. This is actual, real deal, and very likely eradication. Orchis is their greatest foe above all else, if for no other reason than their possession of their ultimate weapon, Nimrod. And Nimrod is something that no mutant on Krakoa can likely stand against. Well, maybe there are some, but it would be difficult. Nimrod is very adaptable and is a foe of which the likes that it would take literally the entire island of Krakoa most likely to take him down. Now, getting into the vote that the Quiet Council has put down, those who voted no almost surprised me. While Kate Pryde and Nightcrawler made sense, I was somewhat surprised Storm said no, especially considering how she's adapted to being the regent of Arakko, which demands she be more active in facing direct confrontations and conflicts, as well as indirect confrontations and conflicts, but also some of her stances that come up in this book in the other sections that we'll dive into later. Colossus is a puppet of his brother Mikhail Rasputin, so there's no real surprise, but considering this would only benefit Mikhail if the mutants engage in open war or even secret war with humans, it was a head scratcher to me that Mikhail Rasputin didn't leap at this opportunity, but maybe this was Mikhail allowing Colossus to be more like his old pacifist self. The real head scratcher though was Emma Frost. For a woman who possesses diamond skin, or at least the ability to have diamond skin, she's grown quite soft in later years. She's also dealing with some problems of her own right now that if you're keeping up with Devil's Reign X-Men, also by Gerry Duggan, you'll kind of know what's going on there. We'll probably have a video out for that a little later on, but the thing that's actually leaping out at me is Emma Frost is actually trying to play this safe, and very likely for the same reasons as some of the others are, that she doesn't want to engage in war with humans. She knows that Krakoa stands to lose everything if that's the case, and secrets have already kind of destroyed Krakoa from within, so it kind of makes sense that she wouldn't want to do this, but at the same time, I'm still surprised that she didn't at least seem to want to be involved in this. Those in favor of open war or even secret war are the ones you'd expect: Sebastian Shaw, Exodus, and Magneto. There are no surprises there at all. Those who abstained are what makes this even more interesting though. Sinister not so much, because well, he's just an agitator. He went the way he felt, caused the most chaos, and as stated, he knew it wouldn't pass anyway. Xavier makes some modicum of sense because Xavier is a man of half measures. He wants peace and mutant freedom, but he's not willing to do the dirty work sometimes, if not most times. Destiny and Mystique, this one is very interesting. point. We can safely assume Mystique abstained because Destiny did. That's obvious given their romantic relationship. But Destiny, she knows something. She knows something big, and as stated later in the issue, she has quotey fingers read to the end, and she knows that this isn't how the war is won. Now, yes, there are some other things going on with Destiny as far as her hatred of Gambit, her irrational hatred of Gambit. That is, though there may not be any irrationality to it. Maybe it's just the simple fact that she knows something that Gambit is going to do in the future that she just is worried that is going to happen to Rogue. And of course, Destiny can't just tell people what's going to happen in the future because that affects the future. Knowing the future sometimes can change the future, and she doesn't want to change it for whatever reason, or maybe it can't be changed, who knows. That part was, fun and all is well and good, but I think this section, while yes, it did kind of serve a more interesting narrative and putting a little more limelight on Rogue and Gambit, but I think this was actually just more meant to put more emphasis on the fact that Destiny is up to some shady shenanigans, and that right now she is trying to gather in all the power that she can think of, any potential allies to her ranks, because at some point, Destiny and Mystique, they are going to pull the coup that was teased in Jonathan Hickman's Inferno. The real question now is that if Krakoa will not go to war with Orchis and instead take the killing them with kindness approach, what is Bishop going to do to change their minds? Bishop is a time-traveling mutant who hails from a theoretical alternate future, and while in the past it's been written off that certain major events that have affected mutants were unknown to him because reasons, he actually did know about House of M and the decimation, as well as the Messiah Complex and Messiah War, and pretty much every other major X-Men story arc crossover event that has negatively affected them. He's known about all of them. He just chose to say nothing. So now, what is it that he knows that he is going to use to galvanize those who voted no or abstained into voting yes? Because we got to remember, one of the things that is in the future where Bishop comes from are Sentinels, and lots of them. There's also mutant subjugation, and very likely Nimrod. So if anyone can probably paint a prettier, or maybe even in this case, uglier picture about what the future could potentially hold if they choose to remain inactive, it would probably be Bishop. Now, getting back to Orchis, we've learned more in this issue about their operation in ways that might seem trivial at first, but are actually quite important. As some may remember when shown the branches of Orchis in the past, when shown the inner circle of Orchis, the 6 petals that revolve around its leader and director, Dr. Killian Devo, we were shown redacted names and even redacted titles. In last year's Sword number 4, we were shown only Gyrick as the infrastructure and influence of Orchis, but he's dead. And Abigail Brand has taken his place as she was his murderer and is working her own shadow war against Krakoa, and maybe even for Krakoa, because she sees a bigger picture in terms of mutants' place in the realm of the cosmos. She's not just thinking about having a little island or even a little planet. She's working some kind of larger narrative. And only she truly knows exactly what it is she's trying to pull off. But considering everything that she's done over the course of Sword, orchestrating the discovery of Mysterium and getting it into the Marvel Cosmic Universe's rotation as a currency and viable resource, as well as infiltrating Alpha Flight, and then of course also puppeteering everything that happened there, everything that transpired, every move that Gyrick made was pretty much at the design of Abigail Brand, even up to the point that she orchestrated his death. The truth of the matter is she knows Krakoa isn't ready to make the major plays that she's willing to make. Whether this whole infiltrating Orchis thing works out for her is another story. At this point, she's the only one who knows she's working with Orchis other than Orchis itself, and Orchis seems more than happy to have her regardless of the fact that she's a mutant, because just as Abigail is playing a dangerous game, Orchis is willing to use her for as long as she's useful to them, whether that's dangerous or not. We have also recently learned that 2 former redacted names were Dr. Alia Gregor as the head of research and development, as well as Dr. Stasis as the head of human resources. I think it's funny that they put a slash between human resources, but anyway, and Fei Long is the head of operations and offense, which makes sense considering the moves that he made in the previous issues of X-Men when he landed on planet Araco and declared a one-man war. This is all setting up future X-villains, as I'm starting to understand, who are preparing to join the organization, with 2 of those formerly redacted names being Dr. Stasis and Fei Long, those characters that Jerry Duggan introduced in X-Men #1. There are still 2 more redacted names. And those redacted names belong to the departments of culture and narrative and sociology and modeling. We know the sociology and modeling is already operating as Devo brings them up in this issue, but we still have no clue who they are, like who is the one behind the scenes there. And with the induction of MODOK at the behest of Dr. Stasis, while I'd never peg MODOK for taking the culture/narrative department slot, maybe he is. And the reason why I think this is the case is because when we are shown this list of departments within Orchis, culture and narrative is the only petal that is highlighted immediately after we witness Dr. Stasis recruit MODOK. That department might just be one of the more dangerous petals on the list. That's a department that is going to wind up being Orchis' eventual public face, and the last thing Krakoa needs is Orchis having even more spin to work on mutants than they already do. That said, this might actually backfire on Orchis because, as we know, Cyclops did say something to MODOK about changing his ways, and while we didn't get to see the full conversation, something tells me that Cyclops is going to have some kind of an in with MODOK, and maybe, just maybe, MODOK can prove that he's not just a mechanical organism designed only for killing. And with MODOK out of the way, because I think that's probably where MODOK is going to wind up, or if it isn't MODOK, because they did say that it was not even a full-time, not even a part-time deal that he would be involved with Orchis, but something tells me he is going to wind up at least taking one of those 2 spaces. But I also think, what if that other slot was Moira McTaggart? What if she was the sociology and modeling department? What if that was the case? But that's a department we already know exists and someone's operating within it, so who knows? Maybe that's the case, maybe that's not the case. Moira McTaggart is going to wind up being a part of Orchis in some way, shape, form, or fashion. It's just a matter of time. Either way, Stasis's expose plans using Ben Urich to spill out the beans on the mutant's secret of resurrection, that didn't work out, but he does clearly have more plans in the works. As we know, it probably wouldn't have worked anyway. Krakoa is keenly aware that Orchis is aware that they're able to resurrect. While we're talking about Dr. Stasis, let's just not forget that he did mention something to MODOK about not just fighting mutants. What else is Orchis up to? Or rather, what else is Dr. Stasis up to? The whole idea behind Orchis was, of course, ensuring humanity's survival against mutants, but he seems to be eyeballing an enemy other than mutants. He says so himself, life is too short to spend all of it fighting mutants. And he mentions that if Orchis is successful, they will get to kill a lot of people, not just mutants. Something tells me Dr. Stasis might have his own game in mind that's counter to Orchis. Now, the only reason why I think Orchis might be in on what it is he's planning, that Orchis has some kind of secret other agenda other than, just killing mutants, I only think that because he's saying all of this in front of Nimrod. As far as other threats, part of me is starting to wonder if Dr. Stasis is aware of the same thing that Moira McTaggart is aware of, that Phalanx is coming. Maybe that's the other thing that Orchis might be aiming their ambitions at, not just mutants, but also because, you gotta protect humanity, and if they want to protect humanity, then what other way to do it than by taking on the other clear threat to their existence, and that would be the Phalanx, because the Phalanx is gonna wipe out everyone, not just mutants, but humans as well. It's going to assimilate the entire planet, and something tells me that Orchis wouldn't be down for that. So when Dr. Stasis is talking about other threats, or at the very least, taking on things other than mutants, I think the Phalanx is what he's referring to. Maybe, who knows? He seems to know an awful lot about things that the X-Men know, so it would stand to reason. He's also planning on weaponizing MODOK's rage drug from the previous issue into something that might be a weapon against mutants too, so maybe this is all something he can modify to affect only mutants and drop it on Krakoa, or hell, even Arakko itself, and watch the world burn, who knows? But either way, this guy is playing 5D wizard's chess, and yeah, he's ahead of the game on just about everything. I think the only part of the play that he's not been able to one-up Krakoa on is the whole Ben Urich thing, and I think that's mostly just because of a variable he didn't see coming. But once again, with Dr. Stasis, it's hard to say exactly what it is that his goals are, because for one, we don't even really know who he truly is. That lends itself to an even bigger part of the mystery, and I think once we actually learn who he actually is, maybe that will help us better understand what his goals are. But one of the things I can definitely say about Dr. Stasis is his MO is not seemingly that different from the High Evolutionary. Part of me is even even kind of wondered at some point if maybe the High Evolutionary and Dr. Stasis are in some kind of cahoots, or maybe they're the same person. I don't know. We haven't seen them in the same place at the same time. It's kind of like the old Batman meme. Not saying I'm not Batman, but I'm just saying you've never seen me and Batman in the same place at the same time. It's kind of that whole deal. I'm not saying that's what it is, but they do seem to have a lot of the same MO. Genetically modifying humanity to create some kind of superhumanoid, it seems way too similar. And considering that we have seen the High Evolutionary recently, he just kind of disappeared, never to be seen or heard from again, who knows? But just know that Orchis has some crazy shit going on right now, and it's all very likely about to come crashing down on top of Krakoa's head. Now, earlier I mentioned Storm. Storm has undergone a certain transformation in her abilities. While she's always had a connection to Earth, being psychically bonded to it in a way, and being able to understand its whims and desires, if planets actually have those sorts of things, and she's done it yet again with Arakko. I bring all this up because Arakko is engaging a vote of its own. Two, actually. The rest of the Great Ring of Arakko wish to go back to Otherworld. They're very bored living on planet Arakko. A warlike people being gifted a free planet and nothing to kill except each other has worn out its welcome, and now the governing mutants of Arakko want to go back to a mint. Now, one of the things to keep in mind is that the way into Otherworld has, for all intents and purposes, been closed off. If you've been keeping up with Teeny Howard's Excalibur before it ended, or some of the other instances where Otherworld has been brought up, really right now the only way in or out of Otherworld for mutants is through Avalon, and I think even that is tentative at best right now. But that said, entering into Otherworld would, in the way that the Iraqi mutants want to, would very likely lead to, full-scale war. The vote doesn't pass due to a deadlock thanks to Iska the Unbeaten abstaining her vote, but another has stepped up and voted who has been silent since Ten of Swords, the seat of the Great Ring of Arakko, known as the ground on which all seats rest, Arakko herself. Arakko has been largely silent because of the loss of Redroot during Ten of Swords, who was captured by Mad Jim Jaspers and held in stasis on the Crooked Market. Arakko has no one who could communicate with her until now. Storm has been slowly forming some level of connection with Arakko as she has Earth before her. She can hear Arakko and understand her whims to some small extent, more of an empathy than actually being able to understand her actual words. And apparently, as noted in Sword number 8, Arakko has been listening this entire time. Arakko wants Redroot back, and no one on the council wishes to barge into Otherworld to retrieve her. Basically seeing it as, well, if she's supposed to be a true Iraqi mutant, a being born of a myth, then if she can't get out herself, then what's the point? And she's clearly useless if that is the case. Tarn, the uncaring chief among all others, mocks the idea, and though Arakko cannot speak to him directly, it lets him know that she disagrees. Now, of course, I think this newfound ability to empathize with Arakko very well came from the flower that she plucked off the vines that started blooming near her during the meeting. This is very likely why this is happening. Maybe this flower has formed some kind of connection. Sunfire even points it out a little later in the issue. But in the meantime, Storm and Arakko both may get what they want after all, but might just have to do it under the guise of XMen Red. Most likely. As Arakko has taken the Mizunara oak that Sunfire brought from Earth and planted on Arakko, and it has bloomed into the form of Redroot's face. And Storm interprets this as Arakko's way of saying, this is what I desire. Now, as I mentioned earlier, while Storm is definitely able to have some small measure of empathic rapport with Arakko, a true voice is needed, and Redroot is the only one who can do it. I mean, sure, Cypher could probably do it too, just as he learned how to communicate with Krakoa, he could very likely communicate with Arakko, and I believe we've even seen him do this before. During Jonathan Hickman's X-Men number 16, Cypher did actually try to mediate some kind of a reunification between Krakoa and Arakko, and it didn't come to pass because, as Cypher pointed out, it's been thousands of years since they were connected to one another, and they've grown apart even more since then, and neither one of them seems interested in the idea to to reunification in any way, shape, form, or fashion. Now, the thing I want to point out is Arakko, during that interaction, never spoke to Cypher. Now, granted, Krakoa didn't either, but when Krakoa speaks, it's typically very obvious that Krakoa is speaking. And in this case, Arakko really hasn't been depicted as speaking, at least not in the same way that Krakoa does, since the loss of Red Root. So if Arakko is to have any form of communication again, they are going to need Red Root. Anyways, that's everything I really wanted to talk about. Like I said, there was some other stuff going on with Sunfire in regards to the whole XMen Red thing. I think we finally got our answer as to what is going to happen to Sunfire, considering that by all accounts it appears Firestar has won the X vote of 2022, so she will be on the team of the X-Men, and it just seems really weird to have two people with fire powers on the same team at the same time. It's already kind of weird that we have two people who can either borrow or mimic the powers of other people on the same team, so it would really kind of kill the whole diversity angle of powers on the X-Men as well as diversity in some other ways. But that said, it seems like Sunfire is going to throw in his lot with X-Men Red, so that way he still technically gets to be a part of an X team, and Firestar can have her place and whatever. I mean, I guess, I don't know. I'm still a little, I'm still not okay with that. I feel like the fans could have chosen better, and I know there are going to be some people who are going to try and hang this one on Marvel, but no, this was y'all that did this. Sunfire is going to wind up being on X-Men Red to some degree or another. Seems like a lot of what was going on here was set up for X-Men Red, so I'll take that. At least the stuff going on with Storm and Sunfire and Arakko, we know X-Men Red is dealing more with the X-Men that are on planet Arakko, so we'll kind of see how that plays out. I'm very curious to see exactly what kind of storytelling Bishop is going to be getting in the future, because it is so hinted and teased that somewhere down the road, Bishop is going to insert himself into the Quiet Council's matters, and maybe we'll get a little more insight when Kieran Gillen's Immortal X-Men comes out, which is a X-Men series that's going to focus on the Quiet Council itself. So I want to know more about what's going on with Dr. Stasis. Dr. Stasis is such an enigma to me, and I really want to know what it is this guy is up to. Also, I can't wait to get more storytelling in regards to what's up with Abigail Brand. Once again, these characters are being very secret and very cloak and dagger. I like what Jerry Duggan is doing with this, and of course, with the Abigail Brand stuff, it's building off stuff that Al Ewing set up, but Jerry Duggan is carrying the torch on this one, as far as I can tell, so I'm here for it. But anyways, let me know what you thought about X-Men number 9. Keep it plus ultra and sound off in the comments.